Governor Zulum says we have two choices, war or accept repentance. Terrorists. And former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Gali Umar Akbar, says the third force being promoted to major political parties in 2023 will not fly. This is Plus Politics, and I am Mary Anna Cole. Babagana Zulum, governor of Zamfara State, has said he is in a difficult situation, the reintegration of repentant Boko Haram members. He said the choice between to cautiously accept the insurgents. He added that accepting repentant insurgents had the risk of offending the feelings of victims, lead to rebellion, adding that the risk of insurgents returning to their ways if they are rejected. Now, he's obviously talking about being in between a rock and a hard place, but we're going to be discussing it from a security perspective. And joining us right now is Dixon Osagie. He is a security expert. Thank you very much, Dixon, for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
This story obviously has been making the news, making the rounds for a couple of days now. And the first thing that Nigerians obviously are wondering is, why do we have to even be in this situation in the first place? I would like to take your mind back to the first time when the so-called repentant Boko Haram members submitted themselves. They were holding up placards asking that Nigerians forgive them. I remember drilling one of the security persons we had here about the questions that were raised. These are people who said they do not believe in Western education, but the English on the placards were very, very, very good. And who knows exactly what the plan of these people are? Are they really repentant? And Dixon, I'm asking because the army had recruited, and there had been some form of amnesty program and reintegration program for certain repentant former Boko Haram members who the army even said some of them had gone back to Boko Haram, taking information to these people. So why are we doing it again? Whatever happened to once bitten, twice shy?
Thank you very much, Marihan, and nice being here. I think the Nigerian military has not learned its lessons because I am not against surrendering or some group of criminal elements, national criminals and international criminals, bringing their arms to order. Sometimes we must be very careful, not to accept surrendering as a form of defeat, because surrendering could be a deception in the battlefield. When your enemy overpowers you, when the bombardments are very tedious and very heavy from the Air Force wing and the military artillery and armor bombardments are hitting hard on these terrorists, they have no option than to surrender. So for us, first of all, we need to understand the methodology in which they surrendered to the Nigerian states. Like you rightly said, these guys, they do not believe in Western education. And the writings on the placards are very, very clean, loud and clear, and very readable. I think the Nigerian government, the state of Borno, must be very careful because when we talk about surrendering is another deceptive methodology from the criminal wing. For example, when you look into the 48 laws of powers, Law 22 tells us that we should be very careful about surrendering. Surrendering does not mean the military have won the war or taken victory. Surrendering does not mean the enemy has been defeated.
Dixon, are you still there? I think that your connection has frozen, but can you hear me?
I can hear you.
All right, go ahead.
Yeah, so sometimes we must be very careful about surrendering because surrendering definitely could be deceptive. So for us to succeed.
Apologies. I think that your connection again has frozen. But I'm curious if you can hear me. 100 of these members of the insurgent group have surrendered in the past month, and their families. These people came with families. And one of the notable persons among these people who surrendered is one of the girls from the school that was kidnapped years ago. She returned with 2 children, and a man who obviously is a member of, you know, the insurgents, and who she referred to as her husband. Now, I mean, I know that the average person is not supposed to be asking about tactics or, you know, certain information that the army has. But if we have had so many of these people continuously show up and say that they're surrendering, why is it taking so long for us to, and I say us as Nigeria, the army, to find where the others are? Why is it so difficult for us to extract information from these guys to help the army to continue to win the war and have the upper hand?
For me, what I think is very difficult is because we are not following the process of disarmament and surrendering. That's where the administration of justice system comes to play. That is the CJS. The administration of criminal justice begins with the police, the court, and the prisoner. Most of these guys that have surrendered, I would definitely recommend that the government must have them reprimanded because they can't just come and surrender free of charge after killing Nigerians, sending many people to the graveyard, and you know, putting the state of Nigeria at mess from the international ranking. So for me, I will advise that even if they are going to surrender, they must be punished for their crime, because if they are not punished, then the government of Nigeria will be certifying criminality. And when you certify crime, then everyone from all nooks and crannies will be you know, confident that Nigeria is a place where you can come, commit crime, and surrender. Surrendering can be deceptive, like I rightly say. So we must be very careful about those guys surrendering. What are their plans? Do they have a plan B? Do they want to strike back? Do they want to come back and gather more information against the state of Nigeria and strike back? So I will advise the federal government to be very, very diplomatic. And the military must go all out to engage these guys from their hideouts. Because if we don't go all out, I will look at it as a form of friendly match. Because Nigerian military is too big, you know, to be held hostage for the past 12 years by these criminal elements.
Well, joining us again is Ambassador Roy Ohidive. Ambassador Roy, you obviously are very acquainted with this story and what Governor Zulum is talking about. Help us to paint a picture. When he says he's in a difficult situation, and he makes reference to the fact that it's either they receive these people back into society or we will risk an endless war. What exactly do you think he means?
Well, thank you for the opportunity, and thank you for having my brother also on set. You see, one thing that these guys are just making statements. They are making uninformed statements. Now, if we have numbers of persons that submit themselves, that were ascribed to be terrorists and have been in active service as terrorist groups, then they are not a problem for the army anymore. The military should not be seen taking pictures with them, giving them food, water, and clothing. All those are just semantics of politics. Now, the first thing to do is to hand them over to the DSS and the police. And the DSS and the police would begin to separate those that were in active service, those that would feign that they were forced into terrorism. There are those that would say, my village was captured and I joined as a child, so I don't know what I'm doing. And you know, you begin to separate all of these people, and they should be incarceration. They should be within the confines of a correctional center in Nigeria. And once they are taken in like that, we are set. We are not going to do extrajudicial killing. We are not going to begin to torture you inhumanely. But the law must take its course to serve as a deterrent. All of this de-radicalization process that they are pampering them to resettle within the forest region would not be allowed. They should be seen within the confines of a correctional center as detainees. And the security agencies should penetrate them with our moles and begin to find out what roles they play and who are those still at large. Because if you don't do that, you will not be able to ascribe penalties. And if you don't ascribe penalties, you have not served as a deterrent for others.
Okay. All right. Well, let me continue with you, Ambassador Roy. Again, back to what the governor, Zulum, said again. He talked about the fact that if we do not accept these insurgents, this repentant insurgents, they might go back and be re-radicalized. In other words, they would join other insurgents. Now, he also says that accepting them into the society means that you're going to hurt the feelings of people who have been victims of these insurgents. But I'm really wondering why the governor should be the one making this decision. Should he be the one making this decision? Should this be a civilian's decision? And I'm not saying or trying to water down the duty or the job of a governor in this regard, but this is a high-level security issue. It's an insurgent. People are dying. Should the governor be the one who has to say? Like you have said, we should have the DSS, the police, the army at some point will wash his hands off it. But should the governor be the one deciding all of this, being that this is a guerrilla warfare and these are people who have been termed as killers, terrorists? Should we be actually allowing the governor to debate this or try to decide what should happen?
Okay, well, you see, a governor of a state is the chief security officer of the state. But that does not mean that in such terrorist situations, it has become a national issue. And those people should be handed over directly to government security agencies that should handle processing them before the law. So I don't think that is a governor's place, but you know that everything is tapering towards 2023. And you should agree with me that there must have been some covert discussions before you can have a volume of people coming out to submit themselves. They must have tried their waters. They must have discussed covertly with certain persons and trying to find a soft landing. So if the governor had a discussion, I think he should forward his discussion for any kind of soft landing towards the judicial process that will be set up. And you know, terrorism has been going on for years in Nigeria. So why haven't we found alternative judicial channels for those that submit themselves? Pass it through the National Assembly, pass it through the Senate, and let it be endorsed. It can't be now that they are submitting themselves and you are now working towards a soft landing. If they go back into
Ambassador Roy, I'm sorry to talk over. I'm so sorry. I apologize for talking over you, but are you insinuating that all of this is a mere political gimmick because someone wants to get votes in 2023? Is this what you're implying?
Every intelligence security practitioner in this country and global intelligence terrorism watchers, we have seen the challenge of politics and security, and we have yet been able to separate it. Okay, if you have people submitting themselves before now, and those people were taken through the radicalization process, why do you need to make this what is the noise about for this set of people that are also submitting themselves? If you have a de-radicalization process going on already, if even we have been speaking against it, we have said that the de-radicalization process is not firm enough. It's not separating the crime from the criminal. So if you have this set of people, what is the business of the governor? What is the business of this media hype? Why are these people not also channeled through the existing radicalization process? So I don't want to believe everything our politicians do, because if you count the number of people that die in Nigeria, every day. Even these criminals that are terrorists, they break away and become bandits. They are kidnapping in Kaduna, they are kidnapping in Ondo, they are kidnapping in Port Harcourt, Bayelsa, Enugu, Kano, Sokoto, even the airmen. They are saying that they are going to come against them strongly. In Plateau State, every northerner is against this menace.
Okay.
So what is the media hype if it is not policy?
I'm coming back to you now, Dixon. Of course, I know you want to comment on this, but let me also speak on a couple of things, pick on a couple of things that Governor Zulum also said. He said we have to choose between an endless war or cautiously accept the surrender terrorist, which is really painful and difficult for anyone that has lost loved ones. Difficult for all of us, he said, and even the military whose colleagues have died and volunteers, he said. So let's put in context these people. Let's take into consideration the soldiers, the victims, the people of Zamfara whose lives have been distorted. They have been discomforted. Some of them have lost homes. They've lost family members. Even volunteers who've been killed, whether they worked for aid NGOs and all of that. It's a potpourri of people and issues. Let's take into consideration all of these things. Where do you even start to deal with this issue? Because you have to consider all of these people, all parties involved. Where should we start to deal with this issue? And again, do you agree with Ambassador Roy that this is a ploy for 2023 to make a person, a politician or whoever it is, to look good? I think we lost Dixon. Is Dixon back? I think we lost the connection with Dixon Osaje. I think he will come back. But the first part of my question, I think I should just throw it to you, Ambassador Roy, again. Considering your former colleagues, okay, I think we have Osaje back. Osaje, did you get my question before you went off? Oh, you cannot hear me. Oh, my goodness. Ambassador Roy, can you just quickly help us out with that question, and then we'll see what we can do with Osaje. Can you hear me? Gentlemen, can you hear me? Well, I think we'll take a quick break and fix the audio, and then we will come back and have this conversation. Stay with us.
Hello and welcome. It's Nimasa This Week, the voice of maritime. Nimasa This Week is brought to you by the Nigerian Maritime Administration and Safety Agency. Statutorily mandated to ensure that there is regulation and promotion of matters affecting our waters. NIMASA bears responsibility for search and rescue, shipping development, and ship registration.
NIMASA This Week, the voice of maritime, showing on this channel.
It's still Plus Politics, and we're talking about the insecurity in the Zamfara state and, of course, Governor Zulum's concern. Before we lost that connection with our guest, Dixon Osaje, and Ambassador Roy Ohidebe, we were talking about all those concerned, the parties concerned in this issue. If we are going to have to reintegrate these people back into society or even accept them in the first instance. I forgot to raise the issue of the fact that the man who showed himself as the husband to one of the girls who returned with her kids, what is going to be done as to the fact that this girl left here as a child, but then returns as a married person? And this man obviously is not a child. So we're talking about issues of child molestation here. And of course, the terrorist, for that matter, who has made her a mother at her age. So that is on one side. There are people who have lost their livelihoods, they lost family members, there are soldiers who have lost their friends in battle. How do you address all of these issues and still try to win a war against insurgency with all concern? Let's not also forget that the president has reflected on what's happening in Afghanistan. He's brought his fears to play, talking about, you know, what's happening in the Sahel and what's happening in Nigeria, and the fears that this should not, in fact, he was not hoping that it would be, but he was afraid that if we do not deal with it, it might become an Afghanistan problem. So Dixon, where do we start to address this issue of all the parties concerned before we even start talking about the deterioration of the issue?
All right, Marianne, thank you very much for having me. Sometimes we just look at the state of insecurity in Nigeria from a discretionary perspective. Discretionary perspective in the sense that we don't tend to look at the Nigerian state. We don't tend to look at our people, our citizens. We've lost a lot of soldiers over the past years. We've lost a lot of brothers and sisters in the battlefield. And these guys, they can't just come on air to surrender their weapon. Who has ascertained their true repentance? Who have attained the truthfulness of their surrendering. Because for me, I think that it is very essential that the Nigerian government must look into the administration of criminal justice system. It's not in the powers of the governor to pardon these guys. They've committed a crime against the state, a crime against the federation, and also an international crime. So people like that must be, sent to prison. They must be reprimanded. Let me say for 1 or 2 years, then carry out a psychological evaluation for us to believe that they are truly repented. If they don't do that, the fighters, our soldiers, their morale will be dissipated. They will be highly demoralized. These are the guys that kill our brothers and sisters. They are now being forgiven so quickly. So we must be very careful not to tread on the path of demoralizing our troops. For me, I don't think they are truly repented. I think it's a deceptive mode for them to go back and replant, because the surrendering is not a form of defeat from either side. Surrendering could be tactical, and they might have a game plan. Going by what you just said about Afghanistan, yes, the problem is worrisome. That to tell you that Afghanistan perhaps will be a safe haven for most of these criminal elements. So it is the right time for Nigeria to tighten up our national borders and engage this war. Take it as a full-blown war, because we're not taking it as a full-blown war. We're just taking this war as a discretionary war. It's not a discretionary war. It must be a full-blown war, because you could see that most of these guys, they're bringing down our fighters' jets, bringing down our soldiers, bringing down our military. They've tested the integrity of our military. They've tested the integrity of our defense. They've tested our national powers. So the Nigerian government must buckle up and seek advice from security professionals for the way to go about this repented or surrendering criminal elements.
Ambassador Roy, if we were to go by what the governor has said, that He's obviously in a tight place. He does not know what to do, and he cannot do one without the other. Who's to say that these people will not take advantage of the fact that, oh, well, the government pardoned the first group, they clothed them, they, rehabilitated them, even though some of them returned. And who's to say that we're not going to have more people take advantage of this, kill people, do whatever they like, and then come back and say Nigerians were sorry and we take them in? So where is the place of making sure that justice is served, just like Osagie said? Where is the place of the justice system? Can we even trust that that process will be free, fair, and will bring justice to and some form of solace to those who have been victims of this endless war? I mean, Boko Haram insurgents has taken over a decade, and many people have died. I mean, the statistics I cannot get exactly right now off the top of my head, but who's to say that if we go the way that the governor wants to go, these people will not take advantage of it?
Advantage of it. Let me tell you something. Every country has its check and balances. Now, for our executives, the apex of our leadership is the presidency. Now, the presidency has its check and balances. One of its check and balances is the federal constitution. We have a constitution in this country. And, we have the judiciary to always be there to monitor compliance to that constitution. And the judiciary has the agency to help it to arrest certain group of people, even government personnel, that violate the constitution. So what our political system first sought to do was to intimidate and destabilize the Nigerian check and balances institution. So the judiciary became toothless, the Senate and the House of Reps, they became a house of commotion. The other agencies, they lost touch with the current dynamics of international investigation. And before you know what's happening, godfatherism, violations, distortions has just taken place. Anarchy is the name of what is happening right now in Nigeria. Because if you look at the selection of heads of agencies, if you look at the opportunities of the judiciary to actually implement penalties against defaulters, where are all the people that have been paraded for banditry, terrorism, murder, even Evans the kidnapper? Madume was arrested. Soldiers and policemen embarrassed themselves by engaging in discord and killing themselves. The army was intimidating the police was arresting military men, and today, the Wadume case is still a quagmire, is still a menace in the judicial system. Do you think that people don't understand right now that the check and balancing system in Nigeria has been distorted? That is why the international community will be asking to adjudicate cases outside of Nigeria. Because if they say, put these cases before your country, it will become a problem of what ethnic group do you belong to, what political party do you belong to, what religion do you belong to. Even in Islam, there is division. Even in Christianity, in Nigeria today, there is division. So everybody is just at the beck and call of a distorted presidential system. So it's a major issue that we face. And we hope that in the next institution of governance, our eyes will be clear enough to begin to pick wisely.
Okay. Well, because we're out of time, I want to say thank you, Dixon Osagie and Ambassador Roy Ohidebe are both security experts. Thank you for speaking with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
All right, thank you all for staying with us. We'll take a short break. When we return, the Speaker of the House, or former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Gali Umna, Naaba says that the third force being promoted to oust the major political parties in the country come 2023 will be a flop. Stay with us.
Nigeria's Niger Delta region, from where the black gold fuels Africa's largest economy, where the lines between wealth and poverty has never been thinner. Conflicts, poverty, insecurity, and environmental challenges daily confront the region. How can the Niger Delta story be changed for the better?
Join Mamude Akuga at 9 p.m. every Friday evening on PlusTvAfrica as he probes deep in search of solutions.
Inside the Niger Delta with Mamude Akuga, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region.
Businesses in Africa can be very challenging. In Nigeria, it is particularly intimidating, and successful builders have learned how to navigate a hostile environment to unlock opportunities. But one major challenge businesses face is how to filter through the noise and identify where their ideal customers exist. Get insight and practical steps from industry players and captains of industries. Hear success stories to help you make informed decisions as you scale your business in Nigeria. Watch Business Insights at this time on PlusTvAfrica.
Nigeria, by extension, Africa, is faced with a lot of challenges. The growing youth population with little engagement, that is a ticking time bomb. We are a blessed people with diverse culture and highly cerebral minds who have a lot to say. And yes, we are talking. It is important we drive the right conversation that informs, inspires, influences thoughts and action. If we say there's beauty in our diversity, then let us embrace our diverse culture. We must continue to courageously be the voice of transformation as we are the hope for the future. Yesterday's conversations shape today. What are you saying to shape your tomorrow? We know you have a lot to say, and we are here to hear you.
Amid calls for a third force following the largely poor performance of the two major political parties in managing the country's resources to come up, former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Gali Umar Naaba, says the third force being promoted will not work. Well, joining us to discuss this is a public affairs analyst, Ambrose Igboke. Thank you very much, Ambrose Igboke, for joining us.
Yeah, good evening.
Great. So, I mean, we're all very familiar with the third force, and the first time we heard of the third force, the name of the former president, Olusegun Obasanjo, was thrown around as one who was, you know, putting together the third force. But he did say that he had nothing to do with the third force. And then we, of course, had another front that was being pushed by Professor Patu Tomi. We've seen the likes of Femi Falana, and the likes of Agbakoba, all of them, you know, pushing for a different front to somewhat upstage the existing big political parties. But the former speaker here is coming out to say that this will not work. Why do you think he's taking that position? Is it that the PDP and the APC are too powerful and that they probably are the most dominating and nobody or any other political party or any other coalition can upstage them?
Well, first of all, I don't like the name, the third force. The use of force in a democracy is something of is an anathema. It doesn't augur well. It doesn't sound well. You cannot be talking about a force in a democracy. Even the Nigerian police that has force in its name, the Nigerian police force has removed the force in its name in a bid to sound very democratic and friendly. And then we, the politicians, are now coming with a name with force in it. So that means it is contradictory. Secondly, who are the members of the third force? I mean, those who are talking about members of the third force are people who are actually politicians from the various divides. There are politicians from the CPC, from the ANPP, from the PDP, from the AD, AC, ACN, from ABGA, from all the conglomeration of the different political parties. These are the same people that maybe because of one disgruntledness or the other, they were disenchanted and left their former parties. And the same politicians are coming back again to say they want to form a third force. So the former Speaker of House of Reps may have some information that is working on, because these are politicians. They know each other. They know themselves. But what we are talking about actually is to strengthen the systems, because whether you form a third force, a fifth force, or a 10th force, if the system that throws up candidates for political parties and their political positions, if the system is not reformed, we are just going to be changing nomenclature and not actually arriving at any better structure for our people. So whether you change nomenclature, you form a political party, call it whatever name, it's the same people that will still be part of those systems. So we have to be conscious of how to build our political system so that it will checkmate whoever that holds public office. And that is the only solution.
Let me go to some of the things that the former speaker said, and I'd like to quote him directly. He said, "It is still being explored, but a third force is very difficult, he said, to attain as standard today." He's also saying that for that to be able to work out, it will entail massive appeal to the people, and there must be a deployment of a high degree of material resources, which a lot of people that have been contracted were reluctant to give, given the nature of the political system. He says already distrust has been created by way and manner of existing political parties and how they have played out in the last 20 years. So it is, of course, getting difficult, and it appears that the only recourse is for people of good conscience and mind to come into the main parties and attempt to reform them. So I'll ask you, who are these people of good conscience that have not just the persona, but the wherewithal to cause a reform in the political party? And I'd just like to, I know that you know this, but then of course the PDP, the APC are having their own internal fracas, which they have been taking each other to court back and forth. And that's because, again, if we look at it really with some microscopic lens, we can tell that there are many strong men within the party, and everybody's trying to, have a fist cuff of sorts. So who are these people? Where are they going to come from that will have such power to be able to cause a reform when the system in itself is already tainted?
There's this popular song downtown that said that if you ask me, that who I will ask. That if you ask me that question, how am I expected to answer it? Who is the right person? You see, politics in Nigeria had to be re-engineered by people of good conscience. Let me use the same language.
Who are these people?
Where do the people of good conscience start? The problem we have is that people, professionals, people who are trying to bring new ideas into politics want to start at the top. They want to contest for presidency, senator, and rest. I think the social re-engineering of our electoral system, or where good people can be imputed, is when they go to your local government, go to your ward. Let's start from there. Go to your local government. Go to your House of Assembly. Start from, because it is people from these places that are thrown up from their wards, from their local government and state, to start having national positions. We have not been able to realize that. So when people come with ideas, the person they want to jump, they want to contest for governorship. They want to contest for House of Rep and Senate and all those lofty offices. If we don't start from the bottom to start re-engineering the mindset of our political landscape, first of all, the electorate, and then good men and women coming out to tell the electorate how things are and give them examples at the grassroots level, then we cannot give them the examples at the state or national level. So to an extent, I think Alhaji Nahaba is right in the sense that for you, the elections are just a few months away. I mean, we don't have up to 2 years for that. And then we want to talk about coming up with a new political system that can challenge APC or PDP. It's more like a mere wishful thinking. The only thing that can make it work was what happened to PDP before the 2015 election, where some disgruntled elements in PDP had to leave and join forces with the emerging APC, with the emerging alliance between the CPC and ACN. And that's why that tripartite convergence was what made them to be able to even clinch power. If the PDP was not divided, then I don't think they would have lost it. So Nahaba is right. It is not going to be a Tea Party. And for now, we don't need this thought force or whatever. For all we need is to strengthen the system we have and make the electorate have more enlightened so that they can make better choices come in 2023.
I'm curious because looking around, it's pretty even difficult for you as a political analyst to point out who these persons of good conscience, because it's easy for us to throw around these words, people of good conscience, people who have the best interest of Nigeria at heart. But then it's very difficult when it comes down to pointing out or naming names. It's very difficult for us to do that. So does this mean, or does this reflect badly on us as a society, that we probably are the problem and we do not have these men and women who we can point to as men and women of good conscience, because everybody seemed to have an interest of sorts and not necessarily the interest of the people at heart? Does this not reflect badly on us as a people?
Well, we have good people in Nigeria. We have great men. We have great women. We have Nigerians who have, excelled in their chosen endeavors, be it professionally, be it even in sports, be it academically, administratively. We have them everywhere. Now, because the way our political structure is established, some of those people may not have what we call the financial powers or the financial wherewithal to go to political space and contest. And that has been the problem. For party funding in Nigeria is an issue. The individuals fund the
But what
party,
about crowdfunding? I'm sorry to speak over you. What about crowdfunding?
Yes.
I'll tell you why I'm asking this. And this is not taking a jab at whoever, but we see fans of certain people from a certain reality show crowdfunding to buy them houses, to buy them cars. But then when it comes to the people who are going to lead us so that we can have a better tomorrow, we do not see that same energy. So again, I ask, are we the problem?
Crowdfunding will only work more if we have independent candidates. As from now, the law does not allow for independent candidacy. And that is where we need to...
I'm sorry, but when President Buhari was running for this office, there seemed to be a similar thing, like a crowdfunding where he said Nigerians gave money, to help fund his campaign and all of that. So it's not like it's illegal under the Nigerian constitution, is it?
Stunts. I mean, when the president was contested 2014, those are publicity stunts, like the one that was.
Yeah, but is it illegal?
A woman
is it illegal?
And the rest.
But is it illegal?
That was not what he executed his election with. We saw the president then moving in private jets of people like the governor of the River State and the leader of APC, Asiwaju Tinubu, and the rest. And then a lot of money watchers was brought into. Elections are expensive everywhere in the world, but this is the funding that is the problem. So the crowdfunding you are talking about will not work, because if there is a candidate, an independent candidate that people trust and doesn't belong to any political party, people can say, let's crowdfund for this guy and make him great money for him to contest the election. But Nigerians will not crowdfund for a political party. They won't do that. So I'm a realist and a pragmatist. Why ideas are good and the rest, but many Nigerians will not even toy with the idea of crowdfunding for a political party unless they are the loyalists of those parties. In those days, in the 1960s, the way those parties were called as Action Group and the rest, they had membership cards. When you attend, you pay your monthly dues. You pay your dues to the party.
But the big political parties also have membership cards. They do have membership cards, but what I do not know is if they pay monthly dues. But to be a member of the APC or the PDP, of course, you do have a membership card. But then the financial implications is what I do not know.
You know what I'm talking about is those days, party candidates were funded through dues that they pay. Members pay dues. But now members don't pay dues. So how does a political party fund its candidates? So it goes back to what we are saying, that the political funding, party funding in Nigeria is not correct. Because it's individuals that want to contest elections and whatever that fund the party. And he who plays the piper dictates the tune. You don't expect somebody to invest in a party. They call it investment. You invest your hard-earned money, you spend money on the party, and then when it comes to choosing candidates, you say, oh, let's make it egalitarian, let's make it meritocracy and all that. It doesn't work together. Therefore, we need to address party funding. That is the basics. If you don't go back to that basic to see how party funding issue is addressed, then everything cannot, all this thing we're talking about with the mere academic exercise.
I'd like to talk about that quickly before we go. Party funding. I remember in 2019, the last election that we had, Serap, even before 2019, had been asking the major political parties in Nigeria, including the ones that are not so major, I'm talking about the likes of APGA, to make public their party finances, to let Nigerians know if they are doing what they're doing within the confines of the law and what the law prescribes, especially the Electoral Act, on how much monies and the cap to which political parties are not supposed to go above. As we speak, Serap is still dragging political parties to make their finances public, which has not been done. So, I mean, when are we ever going to have that conversation? We just keep paying lip service to these things, but in its reality, we never really go down to the nitty-gritties to deal with the issues, the teething problems within parties, especially the issues of financing. And nobody is, even INEC, not even INEC, is really monitoring that to see that they follow up. And then I guess that I can hear INEC saying that, well, they're not the judiciary and they cannot be doing the work of law enforcement.
You have just said it all. It's a matter of the funding. If we don't really look at party funding and make it, in fact, we should legislate on it. We should make it laws. We should put a cap and then we should follow it up.
It is already a law, Mr. Igboke. It is a law.
It
is a law. And again, I want to ask, who are the people who are going to legislate? These are politicians. Why would I want to cut off my nose to spite my face?
Can I ask you what the citizens are doing?
Well, that's the big. That's the $1 trillion question, isn't it?
The Nigerian citizen is docile. The Nigerian citizen is absolutely docile. And in any society all over the world, where you have a docile citizen, the politicians should behave the way they want to behave. When you talk about politics in Europe and America, because the citizens hold their leaders accountable. Here we have docile citizens. We want the angels to fall from heaven to do our own duties as citizens. It's not going to work. So rather than tackle the politicians, we line up and say, oh, our children have not paid school fees. We have a graduation party to do. Oh, we have hospital bills to pay. We have this to do. That is what we present to politicians, nothing concrete.
So where do we go from here? Because Abba has also said that really, sincerely, he does not know what tomorrow holds or the day after. And that means that the future is uncertain in terms of our political process and if we really are going to be progressing or retrogressing. So what should we really be looking forward to as Nigerians?
I didn't get your question.
Yeah, I'm saying that what does the future hold? Where do we go from here? Because the former speaker has said he himself, in reality, does not know what the future holds, and he cannot easily predict because of what is happening right now.
what the future holds is that the young people, if you think you have what it takes, right now voter registration is going on. Most of our youth are not interested. Who are those that come out to vote? And who are those that don't come out to vote? So if our young people are majority of Nigerians who, in quotes, are conscientious people, and they are not people of conscience, are not coming to participate, then we don't expect a better result. But as I see the political landscape in Nigeria, it's still not very well structured. It's still bleak because we don't have, for example, party funding and financing is something we have not addressed, and we are going into an election. Therefore, third force or fourth force or whatever you call it will not change anything.
All right.
Until we start addressing the fundamentals. Every other thing will become cosmetic exercise.
Well, Ambrose Igboke is a public affairs analyst, and he's been speaking to us. Thank you so much for your thoughts, Ambrose.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, we'll take a short break, and when we come back, I will give you my take. It's time for my take. Now, let's go straight to the point. Every single conversation we've had in the past few weeks is about what the future holds for Nigeria, where we really want to go to. It goes beyond us just complaining and, nagging about the things that our government are doing right or what they're not even doing. But then when it comes down to us taking steps to see if we can address those issues, we never do anything. And my last guest just said that now parties are, or rather there's a voter registration that is going on, and he can barely see the number of young people who are interested in this registration process. So in other words, how do we want to have a change in Nigeria if we are not willing to be part of that change? We want to have good leaders. Who's going to vote those good leaders into office if you do not take a first step by getting a voter's card? Secondly, we're out here, saying, oh, well, we have too many problems as Nigerians, so let's watch reality shows and forget about our problems. Does it make the problem go away? No. The problems are still staring you in the face. It will stare you in the face the next morning. It will stare you in the face when you get out of your house, you open that door and you want to buy whatever. You will remember because your reality is still there. The reality show you're watching is not going to erase that. Nigerians need to start concerning themselves with Nigeria's problems. We're praying for Haiti. Let's pray for Afghanistan. Who's praying for Nigeria? Who's getting the Nigerian leaders to do the bidding of the Nigerian people? No. Every single person is out there praying for every other country instead of Nigeria. Let's face our Nigerian problem and deal decisively with it. I am Mary Anakom, thanking you for watching. Do have a good evening.
There has to be a decision point. The way your baby's presenting, we have to rush you in. And my partner at the time was like, "You going to cut her? Are you going to cut her?"